going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Welcome to another edition of Mean Streets right here on Game Plus Network. Also live on our FTN Network YouTube page, listening on iTunes and Spotify. We do appreciate you guys. Hopefully having a fantastic Tuesday. Chris Meaney here with you. I thought today's show would be pretty light. No Game 3 in the NHL or the NBA. Game 3 between the Nuggets and the Heat happening tomorrow, and Game 3 between the Golden Knights and the Florida Panthers happening on Thursday. We will go over Game 2, a butt whooping from the Vegas Golden Knights, 7-2. We're feeling pretty good on the show about Jonathan Marchessault, 31-1 future on him to win the Conn Smythe. He's now the favorite today at -105, according to DraftKings. 2 more goals last night. He leads the Stanley Cup Finals in goals and points. We have futures on both of those situations as well. But I thought, again, a light night, light show. No NHL, no NBA. We're going to have some MLB picks and some props. We're going to give some love to Andrew Abbott, who cashed for us yesterday. Try to find a couple more winners. We're going to talk about Superflex strategy, how to attack the quarterback position, some late round quarterbacks for you. Going to take a look at some FTN fantasy stats. We're going to bring like a statistic from FTN fantasy every single day. I think moving forward today, we'll take a look at aDOT, but some massive news breaking this morning. Doing a couple shows with Eric Young and Dangle Batselli, and then All in Football with Jake Seeley and Lauren Carpenter, and then bam. And I thought George was messing with me. He just puts this into the Discord and says, PGA and Saudi back LIV merge in stunning end to bitter golf rivalry. I said, no. This didn't happen. Are you kidding me? This is happening. This is happening right now. So we have our golf expert, Alex Blickle, who's going to join us in the next block to go over this. I just still can't wrap my head around it. I don't understand it. News is kind of filtering through here as we walk through. I think we had a comment here from our old buddy from CBS, Rick Gammon, who we've had on this show before. He tweeted just a little while ago, initial feedback is that the tour players are, quote, not happy. No doubt. They turned down cash, changed their own schedule, stuck their necks out against LIV for 2 years, and now they're finding out about a merge in real time on Twitter. Like, I can't wrap my head around any of this at the moment. I'm completely shocked. How does the tour players feel about all of this? Like, how does Rory feel and all these other players? Like, Tiger Woods comes to mind. Not that he needed the money, but the guy reportedly turned down almost $1 billion, like $900 million. Other players, I'm sure, turned down massive amounts of money, and we need to have conversations about this. So I think we got a break right now, and we got to bring in our guy, Alex Blickle, to dive into this. And I guess more news is going to break as we get a little bit deeper into the day, but this is stunning. This is huge. This is a massive, massive talking point, and we're going to dive into it next with Blickle. So stay tuned. If you're here for the fantasy football talk, we'll get to it. We'll recap last night's action in the NHL, a little bit of a sneak peek into tomorrow's Game 3 in the association. And again, we will have some MLB picks and some props. So we got to dive into this. And I know it's Canadian Open week too, so maybe we'll touch on that as well. So stay tuned. A lot to get to here on Mean Streets. Back in a couple.
Play So Rare MLB, a free revolutionary fantasy game and marketplace that transforms fans into general managers. Build your team with ownable digital player cards. Collect, buy, sell, and trade to optimize your lineup. Compete against So Rare managers from around the world. Climb leaderboards and advance to elite competitions. Based on your player's performance on the field, win rewards like game tickets, merch, and much more. Draft your set of free cards now at sorare.com/MLB. Play So Rare MLB, a free revolutionary fantasy game and marketplace that transforms fans into general managers. Build your team with ownable digital player cards. Collect, buy, sell, and trade to optimize your lineup. Compete against So Rare managers from around the world. Climb leaderboards and advance to elite competitions. Based on your player's performance on the field, win rewards like game tickets, merch, and much more. Draft your set of free cards now at sorare.com/MLB.
Welcome back in. Mean Streets here on Game Plus Network, FTN Network, iTunes, Spotify, wherever it is that you listen to your favorite podcasts, as we bring in our golf expert, golf writer of the year, also really good golf player and basketball player. I found that out last night as well. Alex Blickle. Alex Blickle won, I believe, on the Twitter machine to break down all of this mess. I don't even know where to start, dude. Again, I said off the top when George dropped that graphic in the chat, I was like, oh, this guy's messing with me. Like, he's just completely messing with me. Like, there's just no way. I still can't really wrap my head around it. What's your initial thoughts, and can you help us explain what the heck is going on? How did we get to this point, dude?
I'm with you. First of all, like when I first saw this on Twitter this morning, I looked like 3 times to see if it was a fake and if I was just getting, trolled in some way. And there was also like this weird, almost 5-minute gap before the news dropped and anyone started to really talk about it. And then all of a sudden there was just this massive explosion all over golf Twitter, opinions flying from left and right. I think to make sense of it all, you kind of have to start one at a time, whether you're looking at a PGA perspective or from the perspective of LIV Golf and the Saudis. So where do you want to start?
I guess from a PGA perspective, I think is kind of where I want to start. I mean, again, there's just like so many different avenues to kind of go here. But when you heard this first news, like, what was it's just shocked, right? Like, you're just.
Yeah. I didn't at first. I had no explanation for why this was being done by the PGA Tour. The more that has come out and you just see like opinions from people on Twitter that you really trust and opinions that you think, oh, you know what, that one seems to be dead on the money. I think the most likely explanation here is that in all of the litigation going on behind the scenes, that the tour realized, hey, our tax exempt status as a nonprofit is in jeopardy if this litigation continues. So they had to put an end to that in some way. That helps explain it. Maybe there's even more that could have potentially been uncovered, like through discovery and all that litigation process. So I think the number one thing for the PGA Tour seems to be they needed that litigation process to end. Obviously, I have no idea if that's actually the case or not. Maybe they just decided that, hey, this was enough money to make sense for them. But yeah, I'm not sure we'll ever get the true answer, but that seems like the most likely explanation to me.
I mean, I get it from the LIV side of things. I mean, they got all this money, right? They're just for the past couple of years, they've just been throwing money at all these players left, right, and center. And originally I said it in the last block, but it feels like a huge loss for some of these players that have been backing the PGA Tour for the past couple of years, who have turned down X amount of dollars to join for, moral reasons and just other reasons of not joining LIV and keeping this PGA Tour alive and trying to grow it. And it looked like they're in a decent spot. And now all of a sudden it just seemed like, for me, it's like they just slapped money at the PGA Tour commissioner in Jay Monahan and said, and like, we have a clip from him. Should we play that clip right now? I don't know if you came across this clip, Blickle, but this is.
I haven't seen one. No.
George found this for us this morning. Let's roll it. And this is comments from Jay Monahan. Let me
ask about this. There was a story that was first reported in the New York Post yesterday by Brian Wacker about a 9/11 coalition of families and survivors of the 2001 terrorist attacks. 9/11 Families United sent a letter to the representatives of Phil, Dustin, Bryson, Reed, and others, quote, expressing their outrage towards the golfers for participating in the new league and accusing them of sports washing and betraying the United States, end quote. And that's gotten a lot of steam over the last 24 hours. That story first reported again in the New York Post. How much did you talk to your players about the possible ramifications if they sign on with the new league?
Well, I talked to players I've talked at a player meeting, and I've talked to a number of players individually for a long period of time. And I think you'd have to be living under a rock to not know that there are significant implications. And as it relates to the families of 9/11, I have two families that are close to me that lost loved ones. And so my heart goes out to them. And I would ask, any player that has left or any player that would ever consider leaving, have you ever had to apologize for being a member of the PGA Tour?
What do you think when you hear that? When you hear those words? By the way, I see RBC Open in the background there. That might have been like 2 years to the day.
Yeah, I think it was exactly. Was it exactly last year? Probably exactly last year.
Maybe. Yeah. I would assume.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 1 year today.
Man, it's crazy. I think maybe the biggest takeaway is like of everything we've learned. I think Jay Monahan has climbed the ranks of the evil villains in this mess, right? Like he's just. I think the worst part of it is the position that he's putting the players in. Like all of the PGA Tour players are now in a position where they're either going to hear that they're hypocrites because now they're playing under the same money, or they leave golf. Like there's not really another alternative for them. And considering the criticism, or not the criticism, but considering the sacrifices that they have made on the tour's behalf over the last year, and just this entire drama, and now the tour goes behind their back and does this, it's a really, really bad look.
And what do you make of, do you think Rory knew? Do you think some of these players knew, or do you believe some of the reports that, again, we're going to hear more news. This is really, really fresh at the moment, but the report that we showed earlier in the opening block one, if you have that quote from our guy, just basically from Rick saying that these players are finding out in real time, just like we are. Do you what do you think about that? Like, that's crazy to me.
So Wesley Bryan tweeted something along the lines of like he feels completely betrayed by the tour, and partially because he found out in that moment on Twitter. So I certainly think that most of these players did find out this morning. Is it possible that Rory knew? Maybe it's even likely that Rory knew. I don't think that Rory knowing would change anything, though. Like they'd still be betraying him. And, he took that week off a few weeks ago. Maybe he did that because he was fuming at the tour and they put him in a lose-lose situation. Like even if he was part of negotiating this deal, if the tour came to him a few weeks ago, like, hey, we're doing this regardless, you can either help us do it or not. Like they're still putting him in that lose-lose situation. Just because they let him in on it a few weeks early doesn't change anything there. So I think all that speculation is kind of about nothing of importance. It's just a messy situation overall. I think the only clear winner here is the Saudis, honestly.
Yeah. So how do you think this looks moving forward? Do you feel like there may be a couple golfers that are maybe they're just so pissed off and ticked off they don't even want to be a part of this situation? Like that could happen. I don't know if it's going to be a marquee name, but we could see some golfers back.
Yeah, I have no idea. I kind of think it's unlikely just because golf is what these guys know. It's what they love. And it's hard to imagine they feel strongly enough against playing under this umbrella of the Saudi money than they do just strongly about playing the game of golf and trying to win. Now, I don't know all of the financial ramifications. Maybe some guys will be able to turn down some money or something like that to continue to make some kind of moral stance. Who knows? But I think the most likely outcome is that the golf world doesn't change a whole lot in terms of the tournaments that are being played, the competition that's going on, the quality of play, all that stuff. So I think the product for us fans maybe won't change that much. Hopefully not. It's going to be really interesting too, because I think one of the biggest questions is, okay, what about all these designated events? Does all of that stuff just get thrown out of the window under this new agreement? So who the hell knows what we're going to see?
Do we know? Are they doing? Is LIV just completely taking over? Or are they doing 3-round shotgun nonsense? Or is this still going to be old traditional golf?
It sounds like for the rest of 2023, everything is going to go on as it has, and then maybe we'll start anew next year. I have no idea what it's going to look like. I have a feeling that the PGA Tour is going to stay as the the dominant tour, and very little will change in the tournaments. Maybe the big question is, like, does the PGA Tour lose a bunch of sponsors, which at this point maybe doesn't even matter to them because they're getting all the Saudi money. So who knows? Again, like it's so wild. There's so much that we don't know yet. The only thing that we know for sure is that the Saudis are getting what they want out of this. So I think like this is just a major loss for Monahan.
Oh, big time. Like this guy is going to take some massive heat here over the next little bit. With those type of comments and then taking all that money, just kind of being bought out. And it'll be interesting to see too with some of these, like the rivalries with some of these players are still going to be there. Like there's going to be definitely some bad blood. And George jumps in here too. I don't think he's too happy with Jay. He says he looks like a clown at the moment, right? Yeah. Will certainly have an impact on fan attendance too, in his opinion as well. Any other final words you want to touch since you're here? Do you want to touch on the RBC Canadian Open? Do you have any thoughts on that? Or this is the biggest news I think we're gonna hear maybe in quite some time. Like I'm still shocked. I can't really wrap my head around what's gone on here over a little bit.
You started the show saying you thought today was going to be kind of a slow show, and I kind of had the same thought personally. Like yesterday, I woke up at 3:30 to drive to Woodmont Country Club in Maryland to potentially get the call as the first alternate for U.S. Open qualifying. Didn't get that. Stayed in D.C., played in my brother's basketball game, drove home late at night. Like I was very much looking forward to a slow day just on baseball and PGA content. Then this breaks, so as far as the RBC Canadian Open goes, I haven't even started my research yet, so I unfortunately can't weigh in at all on that.
That's all right. We wish you the best of luck next time chasing down your dream. I think you're going to get it, dude. Yeah, Rory is the favorite here at plus 500, Hatton at 11-1, Burns at 14-1, Cam Young there at 14. But yeah, we'll end it on that. We have Pro versus Pro for people to check out as well on our YouTube page. Of course, you're going to have everybody covered moving forward as well. But yeah, it's usually when you think it's going to be a light day and there's not going to be a lot to talk about, there's no game 3 in the NBA or in the NHL tonight, you get this type of bomb. Any final words before you get out of here? Appreciate you jumping in on the fly too and kind of walking through all this craziness with us.
Oh, absolutely. This has been fun. Tonight's Pro versus Pro show is going to be a must watch. I think we're going to have a lot to talk about. Justin is as well connected as anybody in the industry, like talks on a weekly basis with Siwoo Kim. So hopefully we get some almost like direct quotes and stuff from Justin, from some players, and hear about that. Justin also will have some other inside information on exactly like when this started to happen, why this is happening, all that stuff. So really, really excited for that show tonight. Would encourage everyone to tune in.
Do you guys have an idea when you're
8:30 Eastern tonight on Pro vs. Pro on the FTN Network YouTube channel?
All right. Free to check out, of course, guys. Make sure you're subscribed to our FTN Network YouTube page. I know there's a lot of golf fans that check out this show and love your work as well. So hang out with the guys. I'm going to hang out with them as well, watching and try to see what we can make of this craziness. It's been a wild couple years in golf. And you mentioned, too, like that's a Full Swing doc, right, on Netflix? What'd you say before you came on?
They just said that they were filming when this news broke, so that's at least one really, really good scene from that doc next season.
I hope they were interviewing Rory or something at that moment in time. I tell you what, George, I could see in the background. Give me one of these nods if you think Rory is on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being how ticked off he is at the moment. I'd say he's doing
this is George, yeah.
all the emotions, right? Pissed, frustrated, embarrassed, like just backing and sticking his neck out there for the tour. And then here we are, fast forward 2 years later, LIV and PGA Tour reportedly merging. Interesting. Appreciate you, Alex. Thank you so much. We are going to turn our attention to football. We're going to recap last night, a little bit of a sneak peek and scan the diamond for a couple MLB picks and props as well. We'll be back in a couple minutes. Check out Alex Blickle tonight, Pro versus Pro, 8:30 Eastern here on our FTN Network YouTube page. Keep her locked. We'll be back in a couple minutes.
Play So Rare MLB, a free revolutionary fantasy game and marketplace that transforms fans into general managers. Build your team with ownable digital player cards. Collect, buy, sell, and trade to optimize your lineup. Compete against so-rare managers from around the world. Climb leaderboards and advance to elite competitions. Based on your player's performance on the field, win rewards like game tickets, merch, and much more. Draft your set of free cards now at sorare.com/MLB.
The future of fantasy sports is here with So Rare. Build your teams just like an owner. Buy, sell, or trade officially licensed digital player cards. Build your 5-player weekly lineup, and you could win rewards like tickets, autographed jerseys, and more. The future of fantasy sports is here with So Rare, taking Dynasty to the next level.
Welcome back in. Craziness. I don't know. There's not much I can say. It's been just a wild morning here on my side of things, with the All in Football this morning. Dango Batselli, my dog's freaking out. He got into some trash or something. So he's got the runs. He's barking like just a crazy psycho. And I'm between commercial breaks. I'm letting him out and letting him in. I still hear him. He's freaking out. And I just still can't. I just don't have all this info for the PGA and the LIV Tour merging. I still can't wrap my head around it. I just don't know how we got to this point. Anyways, we'll revisit it when we hear more news. Check out Blickle tonight, 8:30 Eastern on our FTN Network YouTube page, Pro versus Pro. They'll get you set up for the RBC Canadian Open, which is happening just outside Toronto in Oakville, Ontario. So maybe we can touch on some picks and some stuff happening tomorrow in PGA. I want to go over last night's action in the NHL just quickly. I mean, game 3 isn't going to happen until Thursday, so we have a couple days to kind of digest as the series shifts to Southern Florida. Sunrise, the Panthers need a must-win. I mean, they got spanked last night. It just looked like men versus boys. And, Bobrovsky hasn't looked the same as he did in the first round 2 and round 3 in particular against the Leafs and the Hurricanes. He kind of looked like the Bobrovsky of the regular season, but it's not all on him. Vegas they just look awesome. I mean, the fourth line started again for Bruce Cassidy last night, a 7-2 victory for the Golden Knights. And I just feel like the difference between the two teams, like obviously Adin Hill is playing fantastic, but I mean, just 4 lines that can come at you. They're just as deep, if not deeper than Florida, because they have a fourth line that, played so good in game 1 where William Karlsson and Riley Smith saw their ice time come down a little bit. So it's a luxury. The Golden Knights got the 4 lines rolling. All their defenders are 6 foot, like they're blocking shots, they're getting in avenues and lanes, and they're just, playing really good. I mean, Vegas is just clicking on all cylinders. You could just say they were just as hot as Florida heading into the Stanley Cup Finals too. I mean, they had won 4 or 5 against the Jets, including 4 in a row. Against the Oilers, who we all love, myself included. They made quick work of Edmonton as well, and Adin Hill coming into that series midway through and looking fantastic, and then making quick work of the Dallas Stars as well. I mean, the 2 losses that they had could easily been W's. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what to say. Bob got pulled last night. I would expect Paul Maurice to go back to him. You got to go back to him for game 3. And, maybe just this long layoff, the 9 days off, had something to do with maybe Bobrovsky. He was certainly in a rhythm that doesn't, it's not beneficial to have that much time off, especially when you're clicking. You usually see it as a negative, but also, here down to the fact that they haven't lost on home ice, you can't say that they're completely out of it. They're going to have to win game 3 and 4 at home to get back into this series. And if they do, it'll be a 2 out of 3, but they're still going to have to find a way to win a game on the road in Vegas. I think it's tough. I think they're done. I did have Vegas in 7. I don't know if it goes 7. I think Florida's going to win a game or two on home ice, but I think this is over pretty quickly. And we're looking pretty good with some of our futures. We have Jonathan Marchessault at 31-1 to win the Conn Smythe, which we sprinkled after round 2. And we have 12-1, a little bit of a sprinkle on Aiden Hill as well. Jonathan Marchessault is the favorite today to win the Conn Smythe, according to DraftKings, at -105. He's got 4 points in this series, which is tied with Jack Eichel. We do have a 13-1 future on Marchessault to lead the Stanley Cup in points, and he's got the 3 goals. So he's got a goal lead there on Brett Howden. And that's it. Like, when I look at Vegas, and I just love what Bruce Cassidy has done with the lines, you see teams just like, they just put all their superstars inside the top 6, but you got Barbashev, who fits in beautifully. You know what he brings to the table, the sandpaper, the grit, all those like hockey nonsense things that you hear, but he does it all. Like, he finishes checks. He's got a Stanley Cup on the resume. You know, he fits in perfectly with Eichel and with Marchessault. And then you have Howden on that line with Mark Stone, and Chandler Stevenson fits in perfect. And then you have Amadio fits in perfectly with like the misfits and Riley Smith and Chandler and William Karlsson, excuse me. So it just like so much balance up and down their lineup. And this is some of the statistics. We showed it from game 1. It's not as alarming as game 1. Some defenders on the list here on the right side. These are 5-5 shot attempts, shots, and scoring chances from game 2. Alec Martinez scored a goal last night, had the 6 attempts, 2 shots, and 2 scoring chances. Alex Pietrangelo did not get us a shot. We actually had a really solid day. We had Vegas to win. We had all the Florida guys that you want. You know, like we had Sam Bennett plus money for 4 shots. We had Carter Verhaeghe for over 2.5 shots. We had Brendan Montour for over 2.5 shots. We had Alexander Barkov for over 2.5 shots. So we hit all those guys. We hit also Jonathan Marchessault first goal and over 3.5 shots. Just we did not get my 2 favorites. My favorite was Shea Theodore, and he finishes with 0 shots, and Pietrangelo with 0 shots. But Chandler Stevenson, I thought, had a phenomenal game. He was flying all over the ice. 4 attempts, 3 shots, and 1 scoring chance. On the other side, Alexander Barkov had the 6 attempts, but just 1 on net at 5-5. He did finish the game with 3 shots, 4 scoring chances there. Anton Lundell and Paul Maurice shuffled the lines in the third period. They had a good third period, but at that moment, you know, Vegas is just, you know, they're checked out. You know, they're playing defensive hockey. They're putting pucks in deep. And we saw Florida, you know, have a really strong third period. Lundell was put on that top line with Barkov and Duclair. And on the second line, we saw Carter Verhaeghe with Sam Bennett and Matthew Tkachuk. And I think that's what we'll see for game 3. Lundell could be a sneaky player there. 6 attempts, 3 shots, and 2 scoring chances. He did score a goal. Brendan Montour with the 6 attempts, 3 shots, and 1 scoring chance. Montour's been absolutely fantastic here in the Stanley Cup playoffs in terms of shot attempts and shots. So, yeah, we'll just leave it at that. We'll revisit it in a couple days. I really like where this Vegas team is at. I think they're playing really, really strong hockey, playing with a lot of confidence, and just look up and down their lineup. You know, you hear me say sometimes you learn to lose before you learn to win. That's something that I said multiple times, and we're just seeing it here with Vegas and the experience that they do have. Pietrangelo Cup, Alec Martinez 2 cups, Barbashev Cup. You know, the 4 original guys like Marchessault, Smith, Karlsson, Shea Theodore went to the Stanley Cup Finals in year number 1 for Vegas, losing to Washington, learning a thing or two in those moments as well. And just the revenge, like the Vegas Golden Knights Twitter, social media team on Twitter, they were having a lot of fun with some tweets yesterday. You know, we will select Jonathan Marchessault in the expansion draft. Thank you, Florida. Oh, great. You're also going to give us Riley Smith and a 4th round pick to take Riley Smith. Thank you. We will do that. And those 2 guys are lighting up the former franchise. I don't want to talk about the penalties. Like, what I will say is Matthew Tkachuk's check on Jack Eichel, completely clean, is a good body check. I just don't like what happens after these good checks. Why do people need to jump Matthew Tkachuk after? You know, Matthew Tkachuk gets baited into a 10-minute penalty. He had 4 or 5 shots last night and a goal, and he had over 20 minutes in penalties. You know, I would like to see this instigator rule be like in full effect. He lays out Jack Eichel. It's a great hit. Back in the day when you laid out somebody, that's it. The play continued. You took a number and you moved on. You dropped the gloves later on, sure. But Pietrangelo jumps in, gives him a couple cross checks. He's defending himself at that moment. And then because he laid out a big hit, which could have been a turning point in the series, wasn't at the time, but could have been. It's a massive hit. I'll tell you what, I played a lot of hockey in my day, and when there's a big hit or a fight, it does lift your bench up. It lifts the spirits up. Jack Eichel's a superstar. I'm glad that he returned in the third period and he was fine. But Matthew Tkachuk shouldn't have to drop the gloves or really even defend himself after laying out a good body check. And he shouldn't have got 10 minutes. He gets a 10-minute misconduct basically for defending himself after that. What's he supposed to do? He sit there and take a bunch of punches, take a bunch of cross checks because he laid a clean body check. He's still going to get, time in the penalty box. I wish that part of the game would change a little bit in the NHL. I hope we see some of that because I love a good clean hit, and a guy shouldn't have to drop the gloves because of it. And that's what you see so much in the NHL. We're going to break. We'll say goodbye to the NHL stuff for now. NBA, we'll just revisit it tomorrow. It's I think 2.5-point favorites for the Denver Nuggets. I'm going to be on Denver. We talked about the adjustments that the Miami Heat made in Spoelstra. You can't take away all aspects of Joker's game, but they did take away him distributing the basketball. Said, you want to be a scorer, be a scorer. We're not going to stop you anyways. Like nobody's stopping you. But this is a team that struggles to win basketball games when he doesn't get like double-digit assists. So they did a good job of just letting him score, take away all the other options there, like Jamal Murray. So we'll see how now Denver adjusts on the road in Miami. We'll have some props for you guys tomorrow, but I'm going to be all over Gabe Vincent and Jamal Murray assists because the guy's been an assist machine here in the NBA Finals. We're going to turn our attention to the NFL. We got some, I know we've already done some quarterback rankings, but I got some deep league Superflex stuff. We're going to talk some Superflex strategy. I want to share aDOT leaders with you guys. There was one wide receiver, see if you guys can get it in the break. One wide receiver that finished inside the top 10 in air yards last year, which is a free tool that you can check out over ftmfantasy.com, and finished inside the top 10 in average depth of target. Who is that wide receiver? We'll talk about him next here after the break on Mean Streets here on Game Plus Network.
The future of fantasy sports is here with So Rare. Build your teams just like an owner. Buy, sell, or trade officially licensed digital player cards. Build your 5-player weekly lineup, and you could win rewards like tickets, autographed jerseys, and more. The future of fantasy sports is here with So Rare, taking Dynasty to the next level. The future of fantasy sports is here with So Rare. Build your teams just like an owner. Buy, sell, or trade officially licensed digital player cards. Build your 5-player weekly lineup, and you could win rewards like tickets, autographed jerseys, and more. The future of fantasy sports is here with So Rare, taking Dynasty to the next level.
I'm typing MLB picks and commercial break between for Quan. That's a banner. We're going to get to it. I got to get to it, Quan, in the final block, but I'm going to give a little bit of love to Mitch Keller here. So the wide receiver, see if you guys can guess it. Let's put up the aDOT leaders, average depth of target. There's free tools over at ftmfantasy.com. I think they're pretty predictive tools, like air yards, aDOT, average depth of target for wide receivers, quarterbacks. I think it's a really nice tool too, like during the season, especially if you're a DFS player, you're looking for upside. These are the aDOT leaders, as you see, minimum 50 targets. So Gabe Davis led the way. That's 15.41 yards as average depth of target. Deep threat, right, for the Buffalo Bills last season. DJ Chark with Detroit last season, now a member of Carolina. Second, George Pickens, 15.09. Chris Olave, New Orleans, 14.17. Jahan Dotson, Washington, 13.98. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, MVS, KC, 13.9. My guy, Christian Watson. Oh, baby, I love this guy. I think he's going to ball out this year. 13.8 for the Packers. Corey Davis for the Jets, 13.73. Marvin Jones with Jacksonville last year, now back in Detroit, 13.22. So maybe he's going to get those same sort of deep targets last year that DJ Chark got. And I think, he's going to fill he's a little later on in his career now, but I still think he's got a little bit to offer, especially, in Detroit. No Jameson Williams for the first 6 weeks of the season could still be a red zone target like he has been for the majority of his career. And then DJ Moore there, a member of Carolina, now a member of the Chicago Bears, the Bears. So Chris Olave is the guy here on this list that is also the only wide receiver inside the top 10 in air yards last season. Taking a look at just fantasy points per game, Chris Olave had a really good rookie season. I mean, finished as wide receiver 23 in fantasy points per game, but 15 games played, 119 targets, 72 grabs, 1,000 yards, 4 touchdowns. We gave a bet yesterday. I think it was like a 3-leg free bet. Now, we did get Andrew Abbott. We did not get Shea Theodore. And the other bet was Chris Olave over 4.5 receiving touchdowns at Caesars at plus 100. I think he can build off his rookie season. I think there's an upgrade at the quarterback position this year with Derek Carr under center. He's always been an accurate quarterback for the most part, Derek Carr. Last year may just go down as as an outlier there, but very accurate for the majority of his career. This is the first season he's going to have a top 10 defense. So the defense is going to be good. They've built the offensive line over the past couple years. They're going to have a strong run game. And I don't know about Michael Thomas's health. It's been like a couple years now. This guy has not been able to stay on the football field. He missed an entire year 2 years ago. He played, 3 games last season? They were good games, but he played 3 games. There's not another option on this team after Chris Olave. We can get excited about Juwan Johnson. I'm excited about him. Talking about him yesterday, the tight end rankings. I think he could be a nice, red zone target for Derek Carr. Other than that, Rashid, or getting excited. He's a deep threat guy, but I don't think we're getting super excited about him being like a volume target hog. I think Chris Olave, he's getting drafted around wide receiver 13, 14. I think he's a strong low end wide receiver 1. I think he makes her a really good target. If you're drafting at the first part of the draft, like say top 4 picks, you can get yourself maybe a Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill. You get yourself certainly an alpha wide receiver. And when it comes back to, you could do Olave again as potentially your second wide receiver. And then, if you wanted to get real nuts, you can go wide receiver again, but you could just there'll be bell cow running backs available to you at that point in the draft. Like a Najee Harris will be available to you. Dog is freaking out, but Ramondre Stevenson may be available to you at the end of the second. You could start your draft pretty nicely, if you got the first part of the draft with 2 alpha wide receivers and Chris Olave being one of those guys. So he's not a big body wide receiver. He's only he's 6 foot, 187 pounds. He doesn't seem like a big red zone threat, but he's a great route runner. And they were targeting him deep down the field. Like you saw there, the aDOT they were taking shots at them deep down the field. There was a lot of air yards there for him. And now he did really take off as a target monster. Once we saw Michael Thomas go down, but there's some big, there were 2 13 target games from him last season, one with 14, another one with 12. So he was getting a lot of work down the field. I think he's a really, really strong target this year in fantasy drafts. So I just wanted to show that to you guys. Oh, and maybe touch on a couple others. Dog is just losing his mind here today. What a day. What a day here. Bats for sure for everybody after the show and in between breaks. Guys here that I would target, in best ball. I think you could take something from this in best ball. Like Davis is still going to be a deep threat. Pickens I really like. You saw the Pickett to Pickens connection. Deontay Johnson doesn't score touchdowns. George Pickens is a freak. His route running ability, his hands, some highlight reel catches from him. Jahan Dotson is a guy that I really like. Minimal games last season, but I believe he scored 7 touchdowns. He's a guy, a deep threat guy. MBS is very boomer bust. A lot of these guys are boomer bust because they're not going to catch all these targets. When you're getting targeted down the field like that, you're just not going to be able to connect unless you have a really good quarterback. And, I don't think Pickett is a great quarterback. He's not going to be super accurate, but Pickens, I'm a believer in. Dotson, I'm a believer in. Olave, I like. Davis, not so much, even though he has turned into a value this year because last year he was getting overdrafted. This year, because he didn't meet those expectations as a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 25, 26. This year he's getting drafted outside the top 30, 35 at the position. So he's all of a sudden turned into a value. And I love Christian Watson, and I'm in on DJ Moore. Had the discussion with Jake Seeley and Lauren Carpenter today on All in Football. You can check that out on Game Plus Network on Tuesdays and here on our FTN Network YouTube page as well. And some exciting news in the future to announce about that show. We'll save it for another day. But I really do like DJ Moore. If you go back and look at the last 4 years, he's top 6 among wide receivers in receiving yards. And, he's going to be a target hog in Chicago. And we saw, Justin Fields, you can't close the book on him. He's just a young quarterback with who has he been throwing the football to over the past couple of years? You got a Cole Kmet, right, George? That's it. He's really only thrown the football to Cole Kmet. And Cole Kmet was great down the stretch of last year. Look at Josh Allen. What happened with Josh Allen when they brought in Stephon Diggs? Just a massive uptick. What happened to Jalen Hurts when they brought in AJ Brown? Massive uptick, right? Was probably going to win the MVP if not for the injury to the end of the season to him on the shoulder. But now I think we'll see a massive uptick in Justin Fields and the way that he can extend plays and the way that a DJ Moore can run routes and extend plays himself. Like if quarterback is scrambling, DJ Moore is going to find open avenues. He's great after the catch as well. I think DJ Moore right now going as wide receiver 24, I think is a really, really strong target. I got to check on my dog. We got a break. We'll talk quarterbacks here next on Mean Streets. Bear with me. We'll be back in a couple. We're going to finish strong here on Mean Streets. Stay tuned. All righty. Bear with me because, again, my dog is just losing his mind. So if you hear him through the microphone, my apologies. But we'll continue on here. We'll go through some quarterback stuff here with you guys, and we'll wrap up with a couple MLB props. So actually, we did have a couple things to address here. I wonder how we should go about this first. So I think I want to show Quan. I'll just kind of run a couple things here as of right now. We have the underdog. So we've done this a couple times. These are how quarterbacks are getting drafted over at underdogfantasy.com. If you're unfamiliar, best ball drafts. They also have like props that you can bet on, simple over or under on a player's prop, like on their over under on shots or scores or hits, total bases, things like that. But they do have some best ball drafts, and we've done a couple here on this show and our FTN Network YouTube page. We've done a few as well. Mike Randall has one happening tonight with I think 7:45 Eastern with Scott Spratt. So that should be really intriguing and fun to watch those two guys build their squad here. So no surprise here with the top, that's a tier in itself. I've talked about this a couple times, Allen, Mahomes, and Hurts, a tier in its own. Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields, Joe Burrow, I think that's a tier in its own as well. And then Herbert and Lawrence in their own tier. And then Watson, I'm not there really with Anthony Richardson at that point in the draft, but Watson, Dak, I would include Geno Smith, Daniel Jones, and Tua in there as well. And then we dig a little bit deeper here. We see Daniel Jones, again, he did his best season ever. Brian Daboll kind of fixed him. I was shocked. I like Brian Daboll. He does wonders. He's a terrific play caller. He did some great things with Josh Allen, but he really, Daniel Jones had his best season in terms of taking care of the football, wasn't turning it over. Completion percentage was there, and he wasn't throwing the football to anybody great inside that offense. Let's be honest. Now bringing Darren Waller, Paris Campbell, draft Jalen Hyatt. He's got some weapons there. The offense should improve. And plus what he can do on the ground. Like Daniel Jones finished his quarterback 9 last year. It's 700 rushing yards and 7 rushing touchdowns. So he has I don't want to say sneakiness. He has been a really good rushing quarterback over the past couple years. So he is really undervalued a little bit. Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, Geno Smith. I think Geno Smith is the best quarterback going outside the top 15. Last year finished as quarterback 5 in fantasy and quarterback 8 in fantasy points per game. Led the NFL in completion percentage, and they drafted the best wide receiver in football this past draft with Jackson Smith-Njigba, and I think the best corner. And the defense was pretty surprising last year, pretty good, and I think they'll be better this year. I think Seattle's everyone wants to talk about Detroit being that up and coming team. I think Seattle's that up and coming team. I think they'll hang around inside the division with the Niners. Jared Goff, great breakout season last year. Russell Wilson, I think, is a really good value as well. Bringing in Sean Payton last year was basically the worst offense in football. He was really, really bad. I don't think he's that bad of a quarterback. You bring in Peyton, you get rid of Nathaniel Hackett. I think he could return value. Kyler Murray, just don't draft him. No point, right? This guy's maybe going to play half the season. Arizona's going to be 0-6, 0-7 when he's ready to go, and they may just shut him down and then we're having a conversation about Caleb Williams being taken first overall by Arizona. I think Kyler's going to be on a new team next year. Derek Carr, Jordan Love, Bryce Young, Matthew Stafford, Trey Lance. Really interesting to see Trey Lance there go ahead of Brock Purdy. Both of these guys in the news yesterday. Some reports out of San Fran that Brock Purdy is going to be ready to go for opening day and training camp, and reports out of San Fran that Trey Lance is working with Patrick Mahomes, which is great. Doesn't mean he's going to turn into Mahomes, but I really liked hearing that Jalen Hurts called up Tom Brady and worked with him in the offseason. If you're going to learn from a quarterback, who are you going to learn from? Brady's gone now. You're going to learn from Mahomes, right? So good on Lance. He's definitely taking things serious. This is a big year for him. You see the comparison between the two guys. This is 2 years of Trey Lance, 8 games, 54% completion rate, only tossed 102 balls in 2 years. His aDOT is like 2 or 3. His average depth of target is not. I didn't even have it down here because it was just so silly to bring up. 6.57 on the other side for Brock Purdy. Niners fans like to come at me and say that Brock Purdy targets players down the field. Prove it. 6.57 aDOT. That's among the lowest at the quarterback position. Sure, he's a quarterback. He tosses the ball down the field, but not consistently. But look at the difference between these two guys. The completion percentage for sure, and the pass attempts is very similar in terms of games. Brock Purdy's tossed the ball 170 times, a 67% completion rate, over 1,300 passing yards, 13-4 touchdown interception ratio, 8.1 yards per pass attempt. He's going as quarterback 28. Why? Trey Lance going as quarterback 24. I've hardly seen him. Hardly seen this guy. 5 passing touchdowns, 3 picks. I get it. He's got the rushing upside, 235 rushing yards. I understand it. Man, he ran around a lot at North Dakota State. From a fantasy standpoint, I see the appeal, but there's no reason why he should be going ahead of Brock Purdy. Guys, Brock Purdy is going to be the week 1 starter. He's done enough. He did enough last year. He took over. They were undefeated heading into the playoffs. Don't you think that he's going to get the first kick at this to be the week 1 starter? Trey Lance is going to have to be phenomenal throughout OTAs and preseason games to take over this job. And if you're following San Francisco 49ers beat reporters, they're telling you that Sam Darnold is the guy in San Fran, that he looks fantastic as well. I don't think I'm there. I saw a report of a Niners beat writer say that Sam Darnold threw the best spiraler he's ever seen a 49ers quarterback toss. That guy should be fired. I think he should. Didn't Joe Montana play for the Niners? Didn't Steve Young play for the Niners? That's a ludicrous statement. It's a ludicrous statement. Sam Darnold could be put in a situation to have success like Brock Purdy. Kyle Shanahan's a great play caller. They got a bunch of yak monsters on that squad. Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Brendan Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey. They don't have to do a whole lot. Whoever is the quarterback doesn't have to do a whole lot. Just has to take care of the football. And I don't know if Sam Darnold is there. I don't know if he's that guy. So I think that Jeff Garcia, nice shout out. Jeff Garcia, my guy, former Eagle too. I think he spent some time with Philly, right? Absolutely, he did. Jeff Garcia had some great moments with Terrell Owens back in the day against Brett Favre. It was a really nice playoff game back in the day. But I just feel like these are the guys I think to target in Superflex. And I have Trevor Lawrence there because I feel like that should be the cutoff. I do believe you have to be aggressive getting quarterbacks. There is something to be said in Superflex leagues. If you're at the end of your draft and you're seeing all these quarterbacks go off the board, to take an alpha wide receiver, to take a bell cow running back, and to let everybody else in your league get these quarterbacks, and then you scale down a little bit. But I do believe that either Watson or Lawrence have to be like your QB1. If you are going to avoid the quarterback position for the first 3 or 4 rounds, because they're going to fly off the board early and often, you got to make sure, I think, Geno Smith or Kirk Cousins is your QB1. If Anthony Richardson's your QB1, you're in trouble because he may not start the whole season. He really may not. And if you're punting the quarterback position altogether and Carr is your QB1 and Love is your QB2 and Purdy's your QB3, you could be in trouble. So I like to target the quarterback position. I want to get at least one of these top tier guys. If you don't get the top, I mean, if you pick 6th or 7th overall, you're not going to get, and these are my rankings, you're not going to get that first tier. If you're picking at the end of the first round, maybe you just go wide receiver or running back. But when it comes back to you, then you're out of the Herbert and Lawrence tier. Then you're living in the Watson, Dak, Geno, and Jones tier, which I think is perfectly fine. But my preference personally, I want to at least get one of my top 8 quarterbacks as my QB1. And then I'll live in this next tier. I'm all over the place here. These are the rankings. Sorry, Quan. I'll live in this next tier of like Tua or Kirk or Goff or Wilson. And then you got to get a third, I think. I think the only reason maybe you don't need a third is if you do get somebody in that first tier, whether you get a Hurts, a Mahomes, or an Allen, then maybe I don't think you need a third quarterback. Maybe you just take one at the very end, like after Bryce Young, maybe a Pickett or a Baker or something like that. But I think it's very important to adapt with the draft, maybe take the value. I think you can get by with like maybe starting quarterback 4th or 5th round, getting yourself a Cousins, getting yourself a Geno starting that way. But my personal preference is to get at least a top 8 or top 9 guy, attack it again with the mid-tier with a Kirk Cousins or a Geno, and then attack it later on with some of these other guys like a Derek Carr, Jordan Love, or a Brock Purdy. I think Brock Purdy may actually be one of the best values going right now in fantasy football drafts because of the success he can have with a lot of those yak monsters. We're going to take one more quick break, and we got an MLB pick to get out of here. I got to go check on my guy again. We'll be back in a couple. Hang tight.
Play So Rare MLB, a free revolutionary fantasy game and marketplace that transforms fans into general managers. Build your team with ownable digital player cards. Collect, buy, sell, and trade to optimize your lineup. Compete against So Rare managers from around the world. Climb leaderboards and advance to elite competitions. Based on your player's performance on the field, win rewards like game tickets, merch, and much more. Draft your set of free cards now at SoRare.com/MLB. Play So Rare MLB, a free revolutionary fantasy game and marketplace that transforms fans into general managers. Build your team with ownable digital player cards. Collect, buy, sell, and trade to optimize your lineup. Compete against So Rare managers from around the world. Climb leaderboards and advance to elite competitions. Based on your player's performance on the field, win rewards like game tickets, merch, and much more. Draft your set of free cards now at sorare.com/MLB.
Guys, I've been kind of all over the place. I feel like such a brutal dog owner. My dog is freaking out. I got to let him out, but we're going to end this show with a couple picks. Not going to have a lot of analysis. FTNBets.com/free. Been kind of decent in the MLB. We were 3 for 4 yesterday. I got Mitch Keller here over 5.5 strikeouts. It's a little bit juiced at -140. I'm going to drink a little bit of that juice. He's third in the bigs in strikeouts. He's been fantastic. We talked about him last week, inside the top 12 in terms of starting pitcher ranking. He's got a matchup against Oakland today. They're striking out 25% of the time. It's the 5th highest mark in baseball. So riding that out. And Bluebirds, maybe like cover your ears, close your eyes. I know Toronto doesn't strike out a whole lot, but Hunter Brown over 5.5 strikeouts at +102. These are the last 4 games for Hunter Brown. I mean, he's having a breakout campaign. He's fantastic. He was a big target of ours here on the show as well. Last 4 games, 8, 10, 9, 8. Those are the strikeout totals from him. 4.5 is available, but -160. What are we doing with that? We're passing. We're taking over 5.5 at +102. And then FTNBets.com/free for the rest of the action in the MLB. Thanks, guys, for bearing with me. I'll go over Superflex rankings and strategy a little bit better. I think I butchered that, but have a great Tuesday. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Cheers.